what is going on with parents and their children, and what I just said is not understood. And I think I have a good understanding of it. And it looks like this. To this day, people have children way before they are ready to have children. What does that mean to be ready to have children? It means to be fulfilled as your own person, to not have holes in your mind that you're going to stuff that child into. Okay, we have holes in our mind and in our heart from, unfulfilled desires and our past, and where we were hurt, what we wanted and never got, feeling a certain way, having our parents make us feel a certain way. And these holes ultimately become filled only when we go inside of ourselves and become enough for ourselves, and puts wording to an understanding of why we feel that way. That's gonna hurt, but we feel that pain out. That pain is there because we had, emotional experiences that relates to these empty spaces in us. We at a time we weren't able to understand it, to put words to it. So it's a misunderstanding. It's actually a misunderstanding, and we have to go inside of ourselves and sort through that misunderstanding, where these empty spaces or holes are in our mind and our heart. And like I said, it's gonna hurt, but that's what's happening when you hurt, is you're releasing pain, you're healing. You're healing from those experiences that caused the holes to wind up inside of you. But what you're not going to do to fill those holes, certainly as an illusion you can, but is reach out to some external thing that occupies your mind, or this draw back into these empty spaces in our mind and our heart, these holes. It's like batting up a balloon. As you know, that's why the entertainment industry is like a $250 billion, I believe, is because we have to entertain ourselves specifically from these holes inside of us. But there's a loop. It's like, seems like a loophole, and it's not something. First off, I want to say, parents, I can't imagine what a good parent ultimately. Like, it's very hard to be a parent. They're not doing it intentionally, and I believe, I guess, what does make a bad parent is not anything that they've done, but when they continue to, after you've expressed yourself to them and they've admitted some idea that they understand you, and then they come back and continue to do the same thing right in your face after you've healed from these holes. And that's very tough to go. And maybe that's a bad parent. Maybe a good parent, by my own definition, is exactly what I'm talking about, which would be to allow your child to become something more than that when they go off to become their own individual, instead of grabbing them by the back of the collar because you've stuffed them inside of these holes in your mind. And this child you've had in your mind is to you your child, and they can never become anything else. They can never become their own individual. And so here's how it goes, how it goes. We have children when we have these holes in our head, in our mind, in our heart. And the baby just fills them all. We do the same thing with relationships. We just dive into a relationship. Every time, when we do it for this reason, it's with another person doing it for the same reason. They don't care who it is, ultimately, someone they can stand to be with just the least bit, because not at all can they stand to be with themselves. So it's two people that cannot stand to be alone, mimicking this, draw an attraction for each other, when it's solely rooted out of, the only thing I fear worse than coming home to argue with this girl is going home to myself and having to deal with myself. And so relationships are another thing, but when, as a parent, you have a child and you have holes in your mind and heart, that baby is gonna fill them. Just an angel gift from God. That's what everybody calls their freaking baby. And it's because they've just, what it's like trying to escape these holes, especially if you'll go to the extent of having a baby to do it. What you're running from, and this is why I say parents, they're not to blame. Dude, it's tragic. It's really tragic. And if you don't have some form of understanding of it, this is on the back end of my going through it, where I was forced to put together this understanding because of the pain I was in. And I would not expect another person on this planet to do it themselves. If they went and, started running down the street butt naked because of it, I would fully understand. It's very difficult. And that's why I guess I'm here saying this, is because I would have loved to had some. So getting back to, if you're trying to branch away from your parents and your relationship has become complete and utter turmoil, and you feel to blame and you're being blamed, and the person as your parent's child that you're trying to pull away from is who they expect you to be. Anything else you're going to become, you're going to be called wrong. They're going to say, you're not the same, you're missing, where's whatever your name is, where's my baby, you're not the same person, you're mean, you've drawn away from everybody. It doesn't matter what you're doing, so long as it's peeling off of this idea of what you are to them, being this thing that fills their holes. So keep in mind, when you fill the holes of your parents in being born, what is pressing on those holes does not go away. And it's where a lot of just nasty trauma comes from, is you're expected to keep, are the very thing expected to keep those monsters back in the back of their mind. Anytime they start to surface, as they will, because you've filled those holes, you get the finger pointed at you. And like I said, they're not thinking about all of this. That's literally how it seems. And there's just nothing you're going to be able to do about it. And that's what I'm getting to, I guess, is at the end of the day, hold on. When you go to become your own individual, it doesn't matter what you are going to do. If it is emptying back these voids you filled inside of your parents when they filled them with you from a place of urgency, you are going to face their very things they are running from as they begin to come through your parent and blame you. This gift, this answer to all of the questions they had, this fulfillment that you were in being born, the second that you go to become your own individual and they get all of this empty space back in your head, when you were born, they had no idea why it was there. They were trying to get away from it. They didn't understand it. That's why it never got filled before you were born. But now it seems so apparent and it's so very clear. You are why those holes are there. You become to blame for these monsters that they could not get away from. Perhaps you're trying to become your own individual to get away from them and their monsters that they cannot deal with, which they torch you for trying to escape yourself. And, we grow up with this idea. We all, to some extent, just want to feel okay and okay with ourselves. That's it. We just want to feel like we're okay and like we're doing enough. We're good enough. We don't need to do anything more. Is there something else I should do? We grow up with that thing being our parents. As long as my mom and dad are happy with what I'm doing, that's all I got to do, to be okay with myself. I got to make these certain grades so they don't get mad at me, so that I can be okay with myself. If you're getting in trouble all the time, you're not okay with yourself. Maybe you were, and maybe you're some, rebel child, and you're still probably running a little rampant. But growing up as a child and not having a sense of self-establishment, you depend fully on your parents' approval for the approval of yourself, for the approval of your own individual. And that is the very thing that has to die completely before you will ever create enough room and space to establish yourself as an individual beyond the one that is their child. because they are not going to approve of it. It doesn't matter if you're becoming gay. It doesn't matter if you're becoming the president. It doesn't matter if you're getting too busy with work, if you've got a girlfriend or boyfriend, if you've had a child and you've become a parent. Whatever it is that's ripping you from this placeholder that you are to them, being their child, it's so, when you were born, these holes they had inside of them, they did not understand. They did not know why. They wondered why. It hurts, and that's what hurts about it, is you don't know why, and you have to tell yourself that story in a way that it's okay. And that does lead you to empathy and love, because it is the truth that it is okay. Nobody really knew what they were doing, and they're in the same boat that you are. But they had not done that if when you were born you filled their holes. Unfortunate. So, So I just want to say, this torch, this flame that's coming in your direction, it stems from those very holes. Now you seeming like you're the one that gave them to them, when you're the one that filled them for all this time. So I don't want you to, to some extent, golly bum, I'm in a bush here. To some extent, you do, I would say maybe put forth the effort to allow your parent to stay in your life as you go off to become this other individual. And what's so difficult about it is because, as I said, you've gone your whole life seeking their approval to feel okay with yourself. Branching off to become your own individual is a very difficult process, and it's not led by where you're going to go. What's driving you to do that is what you're leaving, because it's so torturous that you cannot stand it anymore. So you have to go figure out, you don't know. You don't understand either. You're trying to go understand what's going on. And you lose their approval, and now you wonder, it's so muddy. The water is so muddy, because in your point A to point B of becoming your own individual, you skip through every other letter of the alphabet. You're gonna appear to be acting certain ways, because maybe you are acting those ways that you're ultimately not gonna become. But you have to go through your experience of acting that way, and maybe seeing it hurts other people, to drive you away from that, not what your parent tells you about it being wrong. So you might be going through one of these phases, and they're gonna just tell you and it's not wrong at all to be going through it. It feels like it, but that's what you're gonna see eventually on the backside is, oh, this feels wrong, I'm gonna stop doing it. Well, you're just getting torched, and you don't understand yourself, what is happening, where you're going. You don't know where you're going yet. That is what you're going to find. All you know is what you're running from. And Jordan Peterson, I believe, said, it's one thing to know what you're running from, but once you get this idea of something to run to, then your path to changing, establishing yourself as something different, your odds become much greater. So I'll just say this. In your trek to become, it's almost, if you have a choice, it's almost like you're not going to do it. But if you don't have a choice, here's what I would say. Give your parents a chance to be in your life as this process takes place. If they're aggressively coming at you, it's going to go through this big circle that just gets smaller and smaller as you realize they're not going to let it happen. They're going to fake it and try, but you're being pushed away from this thing that you're running from. Not running from. It seems like that's one of the things. You're getting away from your parents. Probably will run full speed from them, but that's not what's going on. You need this idea of somewhere to go, somewhere to land and create enough separation in between your role as an individual and your role as the child of your parent, to establish the objectivity and the space that this push and pull from your parents coming at you isn't going to rope you back in over time when the water gets wavy, as it will. You know that you're getting away from that role. Let your parents' influx of accusations, misunderstandings of what's going on, and numerous attempts for you to express it without them putting any effort. You know, they're not capable of seeing it. Even if they are, as soon as they do, they're going to double down on you. So let that create this idea of where you're going to go, and it's also going to be not back there. Let their pursuit to pull you back in guide you forward, in the sense that it shows you where you're not going to go back to. It shows you what led to you having to go somewhere. Let it not be this, don't hate it. Don't hate it. Don't just say, that's what I'm running from. That's running from it. Don't run from it like that. Run from it till you get enough space to establish this idea that that thing is now going to become the very teacher and the only guidance you'll have forward away from it. As this idea of, whoa, it'll happen in a split second on the backside of an objective perception of what was just happening. Maybe this will help, I hope it does, and create a space for it in your mind. If you continue to depend upon the satisfaction and approval of your parents to be okay with yourself beyond this point of that I've been talking about, or shit, I said, whatever. If you continue to need your parents, so long as you continue to need your parents' approval of you to be okay with yourself, you are locked in. You might get a little bit further and further away, and it's gonna happen, and it's gonna be that way for a long time because it's so subconscious, and nothing like it. If you were a child that obeyed their parents in any sense of the word, create such doubt, it just seems like where you don't know, that's the answer. And it can be your answer, but not the one they're telling you it is. Let it be your answer as, okay, I'm getting away from this, but where am I going to go to ensure that I establish enough space to become objective and not get sucked back in? Let it be this role they're keep trying to dress you back up in. You know, they're grabbing you by the back of the collar, telling you that you're walking into a fire, saying you're stupid, you're going to kill yourself, what are you doing, who are you? And you're not an idiot. If you've trekked off into this fire, you know that you're walking off into a fire, and it is a fire. Never do they consider what has you head down, ripping the shirt off your back as they tug it to walk into a fucking fire. And it's the one that they stand in the middle of and are trying to rope you back into. And that one goes on forever. The one you're walking towards is like a gap, slit of space, and you move through it. And you know, whoever it is you become on the other side of that is much greater than anyone could ever expect another individual to be. And it's their own established individual. So, like I said, it's so hard, and it's not to blame. You know, you're going to go through this phase of having to blame your parents. Ultimately, you're going to need to pin that blame back on yourself if it keeps being a problem, so that you figure out what you got to do to remove it, because they're going to fire until I'll let you know when it stops.